Hi, this is Rabbi Orlofsky, and welcome to the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Whether you are watching with our friends over at Turning Time, or wherever you watch or listen to your podcasts, it's so nice to have you along. And we have a sponsor this week. The sponsor asked for his name not to be mentioned, but it is in memory of his grandfather, Liloi Nishmas, Yisrael ben Yaakov. And he writes, I hope my contribution will help others to continue to be inspired. And Mitzvah Hashem, it will. And your schus will be for you and for your grandfather and for the whole mishpacha, who I have the privilege of actually knowing. And they sometimes participate in our studio audience when we used to have studio audiences. You remember years ago when, before COVID, I'm going back 10, 20 years. But anyway, that's the story. So as you could probably tell from the last podcast, this subject is getting a tremendous amount of response. A lot of people have a lot to say on the subject. And there's many other letters and comments that I really want to speak about, but we gotta move on. We're gonna move on, and hopefully at some point before the end, I will once again try to deal with some of the comments that have been coming up. So I mentioned where we were basically up to, which is Sof Maasev Machshavat Chila. First, you have to have clear what it is that you want. And that's why when a person wants to get married, if they're not really sure why they're getting married and they don't know what it is they want to accomplish in a marriage, and they don't know where the important issues are, then I don't know how you're going to advise anybody what it is you're looking for. Because it's an amazing thing. People sometimes have extremely unrealistic expectations based upon who they actually are. I'll give you an example. I had a student who said to me once, I don't know what you want from me. I tend, as you probably have picked up over the years that we've been doing this, I have a general theme that people should strive for greatness. I had a student, he says to me, I don't know what you want from me. I'm just an average guy. I'm good enough. Good enough is good enough. Yeah. So I said, that's interesting because, I know a girl for you. He says he does because he was in Shidduch. He says, yeah. So tell me about her. She's okay. Nothing special. Good enough for you. So he says, no, I want somebody exceptional. I said, why? You just told me that you're good enough. You don't want to be exceptional. In fact, you resent the fact that somebody like me is telling you to be exceptional. So basically, you're okay. You're okay. She's okay. You'll get married. You have an okay marriage, a couple of okay kids. And when you die, they'll write on your tombstone, he was okay. No, what do you want? You want exceptional for what? For what? You don't want to live an exceptional life. So why you want an exceptional girl? You want an okay girl. You're okay. She's okay. Yeah. California used to say, I'm okay. You're okay. We used to have a hashkoch out there called the I'm okay. I'm okay. You're okay. Yeah. So you got to really get clear what it is that your image is of what it is you're trying to accomplish. So, tell you a story. I got married, and my Shabbos Sheva Brachos, which was, of course, hosted by my in-laws. So my father-in-law said to me, so you'll say something. He says, I hope you're prepared, he says to me. So I said, well, the minhag is you sing the chassid down. He says, oh, no, not over here, we don't. Yeah. He had the same thing at my son's bar mitzvah. People were singing him down. It's like, I didn't come all this way to hear him sing down. But the minhag is that you sing down the chassan because you don't know whether or not he really has what to say. Besides, there's been enough speeches already. So someone said to me once, there is. I'm not sure what the makor is, but that the Shav Shmaisa was said by the Ktsois at the Sheva Brachas. He said one every day. I don't know if anybody sang him down while he was doing the Shav Shmaisa. Yeah. I've been in shiurim where people tried to sing down the Shav Shmaisa because it's too hard for them. But anyway, so he says to me, no, you'll speak. No one's going to sing you down here. Well, I had to prepare quickly. So I thought of a medrash. A medrash that's the basis. L'chadodi. L'chadodi l'kras kala p'nei Shabbos nekabela. The Gemara says that, of course, Shabbos is the kala. The Gemara says that they used to go out into the fields to greet the Shabbos and say, Boi kala, Boi kala. So, Shabbos is the kala. So the Medrash says like this. Shabbos came to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and said, it's not fair. Everybody has a zug. Every day of the week has a zug except for me. Pashtus, Sunday has Monday, Tuesday has Wednesday, Thursday has Friday. According to the Gra, Sunday has Wednesday, Monday has Thursday, Tuesday has Friday. Why? Because he says on Sunday he created Shemayim va'aretz, and on Wednesday he put the Ma'oros up, the sun and the moon and the stars, in the sky. On Monday he made the water, and on Chamishi he made the fish and the birds, which were made from the mud. And the third day he revealed the dry land, and on the sixth day he made all the animals that go on dry land. So anyway you want to look at it, everybody has shidduch. Shabbos says, I don't have a shidduch. He says, no, you have a shidduch. Your shidduch is going to be B'nai Yisrael. The Yom Kodesh for the Yom Kodesh. Now, when you think about it, I said, it's a very strange medrash. Because Sunday and Monday, that's a shidduch. They're both days of the week. They're both 24 hours. They grew up next to each other. It makes sense. But you take a day of the week and you make a shidduch between that and a people on the face of the earth. Doesn't sound like a shidduch to me. So the answer is that the Medrash gives the answer very clearly. The Yom Kadosh for the Yom Kadosh. What makes a shidduch is holiness. And whether one is a day of the week and one is a people, those are differences. But those are not enough of a difference to make a difference in finding a shidduch that's really based on Kedusha. And that's what I want to talk about in this podcast, is what is considered essential and what is not. Right? Okay. So as we have established, let's chazah what we have established thus far. Yeah, one is a boy and one is a girl. If you're not sure about either one of those two things, you got work to do, right? It's a boy and a girl. And they both have to want to get married. If they don't want to get married, it's going to take a very long way, right? And they both have to be clear on what it is that they want to create. Yeah, both Jewish. Yeah, if they both believe in Torah and mitzvahs, they want to build a home, build on Torah and mitzvahs, fine. All of those I would consider to be essentially necessary values in order to be able to go in. But there's a whole bunch of things that one has to ask themselves, is this really important to me or not? Now, when you're writing up your wish list, so okay. I have it all clear. Yeah, I'm looking for a boy between 22 and 24, who lives in Flatbush, went to the following yeshivas, comes from the following type of a family, yeshivish or Hamish or whatever the case happens to be. Yeah. I want him to learn for X number of years, and I want him to then go out and go into his father's business, be an accountant, whatever it is. I want to live such and such a place. I want to wear such and such a shaitel. Yeah. So we have it all worked out. Have everything all worked out. But shidduchim are a funny thing. And a lot of the things that we might think are essential might not be essential as much as peripheral. So I'm going to go through a number of issues now that you need to think about whether or not they're essential or not. Now, I'm not talking about looks. I'm not talking about attraction. Yeah. They say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and I say that's true, but ugly is clear to everybody. Even though there's somebody who you might think is ugly and somebody else thinks they're beautiful. And I've asked this question to groups all around the world, and everyone has agrees with me that sometimes you see a gorgeous guy who's going out with the most beautiful girls, and then marries a girl who's likewise, you see a girl who's gorgeous, she goes out with the nicest looking boys, and she ends up with a guy who's but they think each other's attractive, so nobody's in a position to judge when it comes to that. Yeah. So I'm not talking about attraction. I'm not talking about that. I'll talk about those things later on. Attraction, personality, egos, all that kind of nice stuff. Yeah. I'm not talking about any of those things. I'm talking about externals. In the Litvish community, by which I mean the non-Chassidic community, there is what's called the Shidduch crisis. The Shidduch crisis is based upon the fact that there are more eligible girls than there are boys. There is a theory that was put forward why this is, and that is that since in this community there tends to be something of a gap, 19-year-old girls tend to marry 23-year-old boys. And since the frum community has been propagating at a very high rate, it ends up that every class, as you go down, becomes larger, which means there are this many boys for this many girls. So if you're going to stick to that, then you're going to be limited. So the question is, can a boy marry a girl who's the same age? Or dare I say it, a girl who's older? Now, this was something that was being pushed at one point. I don't know if it's still being pushed, but at one point it was being pushed. There were certain groups that offered financial incentives if a boy married an older girl, a girl who was older than him. And the idea was that this would help to alleviate the demographic problem in the shidduch problem. I had a couple of guys at my house for Shabbos Suda, and I brought this up. One of them said, no, it will never go. I said, why? He says, because if a girl is older than me, she's not going to respect me. And I said, are you so insecure that you're afraid that a girl who's older than you is not going to see your miles and respect you? And they all looked at each other and just shook their heads and said, you don't get it. Now, I get that a lot. I get that a lot from people. You don't get it. Yeah, it's true. I don't get it. But evidently, there is a feeling I cannot marry a girl who's older than me. Now, I happen to know shidduchim where people married girls who were older than them. It worked out fine. Yeah. But I could see where that might be an issue for somebody. But is that an etzem problem? Is that something that's an integral problem? No, that's an external problem. Yeah, how old the person is does not have to determine whether or not, I mean, again, it depends on the age gap. Yeah. There was a famous Abbott and Costello routine where they were in the hillbilly country, and they wanted Costello to marry this girl who was 10 years old. He was 40 years old. She was 10 years old. And he goes, I can't marry her. She's 4 times my age. So Bud says, now, wait a second. In 5 years, you'll be 45, she'll be 15. You'll only be 3 times as old as her. And in another 15 years, you'll be 60, she'll be 30. You'll only be twice as old as her. You'll be caught up in no time. He says, then I'm for sure not going to marry her. He says, why? He goes, before you know it, she'll be older than me. Now, how much of an age gap is I can't say. I don't think that's something that's inherent. I have seen marriages be very successful with a 15-year age gap. I've seen it more than once, and they're very happy. Yeah, because in fact, at one of these Sheva brachas, the fellow said, it was about Shuva. He says, I realized when I became frum, that's when my Basheret was born. So poignant. But is age something that's a make it or break it for you? You've got to think about it. Don't just say, yeah, I want 23-year-old marries 19-year-old. That's the way it goes. You got to think about it. See, can I live with that? And if not, why? What's the problem? What's the psul? Okay. What if the girl is taller than the boy? I have seen marriages like this. I have seen marriages where the girl is taller than the boy and she wears heels. Now, I have to say, you have to be a guy who feels pretty secure. I saw this once, a couple, and the girl's always slouching. I saw another one, like I told you, the girl wears heels. She's always over. I said to a guy once, I said, this doesn't bother you? And he says, no, I always wanted a wife I could look up to. Is that something that is integral? No, it's not integral. It's you got to decide whether or not that bothers you or not. And I'm always amazed how many times you've seen people say, are you in shidduchim? I know somebody for you. How tall are you? Okay, all right. It's an approach. When it comes to height differences, I have seen very tall guys marry very short girls, and like I say, I also knew a guy who went out with a girl, and it was going well, but he just could not deal with the fact that she was much shorter than him. She wasn't unusually short, but she was much shorter than him. He felt it didn't look right, so broke it off. Okay, now again, if that's something you cannot live with, but you gotta be honest with yourself. Yeah. What about a lot of guys make it clear they want to marry a girl, comes from a family with money, to be able to keep them in the position that they want, to be able to sit and learn, or whatever it is that they feel. Hopefully father-in-law has a business you can go into, whatever the case happens to be. They think that'll make for an easier life. It's an old Jewish joke. A woman's on a plane. She's sitting next to this other woman. She says, that's a beautiful diamond. She says, thank you. It's the Goldberg diamond. He says, the Goldberg diamond. It has a name. He says, oh yes. It comes with a curse. He says, a curse? How romantic. Says, not so romantic. It's Mr. Goldberg. That's the curse. Yeah. In Rabbanis, there used to be a truism. They say, if you find a Stella that's offering a lot of money, there's a reason. It comes with a commensurate level of aggravation. So you got to be real honest whether or not you want to handle that. When you're relying on somebody else, so you have to understand that money comes with strings. Everything comes with strings. You know, if I'm giving you money, then I'm already I'm a Baal Deya. I can tell you where you're going to live, how you're going to live, what you're going to do. If I'm paying for the apartment, I'll tell you where you're going to live. You don't want to? No problem. Do it on your own. But it's more than that too, because sometimes girls who grow up very simply have very simple expectations. They don't expect a lot. They don't expect you to keep them in a certain style. People who grew up simply and had to get by, so they understand. They know how to live simply. And people who grow up, I won't say wealthy, I'll say comfortable. Yeah. I always told my wife, I said, you grew up poor and I grew up middle class. She says, no, we grew up middle class, you grew up rich. I said, you don't know rich. You say that because you don't know rich. Yeah. With the whole Corona thing, of course, everybody's going crazy. You know, can I know her? I have a lot of children and grandchildren. And the last time we took everybody to America was, we went to Orlando for Pesach with my mother. She wanted to go to Orlando, and we took the whole family. And I still haven't recovered from that experience financially, you know. My son said to me, well, you did it wrong. If we do it over again, I said, yeah, if we do it over again, I won't go. That's how we do it. But everyone was talking about, hey, maybe we should, you know. So when I used to have, you know, when we used to travel years ago before Corona, so I would try to take a different couple or kid with me each time, you know, to give them a little bit of a trip, you know. So everyone had a little taste. So everyone's going crazy with the whole Corona. It's like, can't we, you know, bring everybody to America? So I said to my wife, I said, that's called being rich. If I could buy everybody tickets, fly everybody to America, put them all up, rent everybody cars, let everyone all go shopping, you know, and do whatever they want. Okay. And a rich person doesn't even consider that rich. You know. I was at the Kinara Hotel here once for Pesach. And there was a group there. It was the Chveis, Goldberg family, Pesach. They all had matching T-shirts. There had to be 100 people there. And the grandfather was paying for it. Now, I don't have that big a family compared to, like I say, you know, that kind of a thing. And I priced it for half a Pesach for my family once, 40,000 shekels. And I was like, no, it's not happening. And so I said, so can you imagine what was 100 people put them up there? Yeah. And of course, took them on shiurim and this and next thing, yeah. So the people have money, they can do that. And if you're used to that, you grow used to a certain lifestyle. Hard to switch out of it afterwards. Whereas, you know, my in-laws, if they went out to eat, it was to a pizza place, and that was only on a special occasion. You know. So it was a different mindset, you know. So you got to decide what kind of a lifestyle you want to try to maintain. Yeah. Okay. Also in this category, profession. Now, sometimes I think that can really make a serious consideration, i.e., if you're going to marry a doctor or you're going to marry a nurse who may have very long shifts, right? It's a consideration. If you marry an accountant during tax season, you may not see him. It's a consideration. Marry somebody who has a job that requires a lot of travel and running around. It's a consideration. Yeah. It's could be something. Whereas if you're looking for somebody who has a nice 9-to-5 job, goes to work, comes home, you have a life, that might be a different consideration. So I'm not going to say it's not a consideration, but you have to decide how much that's important to you. Okay. There's a whole category here that I call handicaps and illnesses, i.e., there's all kinds of shilas. When do you have to tell somebody you're going out with that you have a condition? Like you have diabetes, or you have this, or you have that, different kind of conditions. When do you have to tell people? I'm not posketing over here. Ask your halachic advisor, when in the dating process you have to tell people, or how you tell them, etc. I'm not discussing that. I don't even know if that should be a psul. Maybe it should be a psul. Yeah, if a person has a condition that's manageable, but you have to be honest. Can I deal with that? Can I not deal with it? There was a fellow went out with a girl, and she was a very nice girl on every level. And by the second date or so, he told her that he had some kind of an operation in her, somewhere in her digestive tract. I don't know all the details. And she has a bag that hangs underneath her clothing that, fluids have to be gathered in. It has to be emptied. Now, she doesn't have to wear it all the time, but most of the time she has to wear it. Yeah. And when he found out about this, he went out one more time, and he says, I can't deal with it. So a few months later, she got engaged to somebody else, and he remained single for a very long time. And he kept saying to himself, I don't know, was that something not to get married for? Was that serious enough or not? So I'm not going to say. Yeah. We all know about Tay-Sachs, right? That's do shiurim, because I did do shiurim, and we're going do shiurim, right? People check it out. But there's so many genetic things you could check out. So I know somebody where one of the kids had a kid with some kind of genetic condition, and it could be whatever. So they went to Rabbi Orlofsky, and he says, if it's not something that's common, you don't have to worry about it. I don't know how many people have perfect DNA. Everybody has some kind of genes. Everybody has some kind of things over there. If it's something like Tay-Sachs, something that's really, a given, all right. But you gotta, check on everything. And the fact that a person has a gene, like I say, doesn't mean that it's going to come out or that it could come out. That's why there was a big discussion about doing the genetic test for breast cancer, because that's something that tends to afflict Jews more than other people. And a person could have that gene and never develop it. And so a girl's not going to get a shidduch because, there's the gene is there. It's, like I say, you're looking for a perfect specimen of DNA. Yeah. Reminds me of a person who asked Moshe Feinstein, how far back do I have to check to see with the girl if there's a shaila of mamzeris? Moshe said, don't go back too far because you'll have to go back for yourself and you'll find out that you're a mamzer. So just leave it be. So, a certain amount of bitachon you have to have. Like I say, if it's something like Tay-Sachs where it's the odds are very good, so okay, so you have to take that into account. But not chash richuk, something that could happen. And under that is handicaps. There are people who have handicaps, right? Maybe they walk with a limp. They're definite one ear. Maybe they're a little vision impaired. I'm not thinking about, person who's blind or deaf, etc., which I'm not saying is a psul either. Person has to decide whether or not they can handle that or not. But there are imperfections. The person has to ask themselves, can I deal with that or not? Does it really make a difference at the end of the day? Or is it just something that I want perfect specimens? Okay. Because, there are people who have limitations. Sometimes people have learning disabilities. I know shidduchim that were called off because they found out that one of the boy or the girl had a learning disability, and they say it could be genetic. So why take a chance? Took a chance. Yeah. So I'm not saying yes or no. Again, on none of these things am I saying yes or no. I'm just saying that before you start the process of who I'm going to go out with, ask yourself, what are ikr problems and what are not? Culture. Yeah. We live in a much more international world than we did. And I knew this American girl, went out with an English boy. And after a while, she broke it off and she said, I feel like the cultural difference is too great. Now, are there cultural differences between Americans and Israelis? Yeah. Americans and Englishmen? Yeah. So it was once said, England and America are two countries separated by a common language. I know people who marry boys from South America, from Europe. I have been assured by my listeners in Switzerland that it is an unfair accusation that Swiss people have no sense of humor. There's some people who think that Swiss people have no sense of humor, and my Swiss people say, we would not listen to your podcast if we had no sense of humor. We find you quite humorous. Signed, Heidi. But anyway, listen, there are cultural differences. People come from South America. Israelis and Americans. But let's move it up a notch. It's not just a question of culture. What about if there's actual difference in language? So the boy or the girl speaks Hebrew, and so they get set up with an Israeli. But he's not going to be able to communicate with your family. They don't speak Hebrew. Now, that's a lot of fun because you can talk about him at the table and you don't have to worry, he doesn't know what you're saying. But there's, it's a consideration. Is that enough to say, I'm not going out with somebody unless we both speak the same language? Now, this is something that's particular for people like my children. Because they said to me, Abba, we're not Israelis and we're not Americans. We're American Israelis. We live in two worlds. And so you end up marrying another American Israeli because, straight Israeli, that's not really who we are. Straight Americans, not really who we are. And, you have to figure out. So it's a consideration. I'm not saying no. If you feel comfortable, yeah. This in Kaplan, he went out with an American girl, and she didn't want to continue because he says he doesn't speak English. Okay, but he's a goyim, so he says, "I'll learn English." He picked up English, so they would converse in English. I know people who went out with people who spoke another language. They didn't understand the language. I said, "What'd you do on the date?" He goes, I said, "How are you going to communicate?" He goes, "I don't know. I think there'll be less problems in a marriage if we don't understand what each other's saying." It's a cultural thing. There's no question it's a cultural thing. And on the subject of a cultural thing, two considerations. First is Chassidim and Litvish. What do I mean by this? Rabbi Orlofsky once wrote an article where he says that in the Chassidish community, they have the reverse problem. They have a bit of a shidduch crisis, but it's because there are more boys than there are girls. So he says, I could solve the problem very easily. Let the Litvish girls marry Chassidish boys. What's so bad? What's so bad? So how different could it be? Now, I have to say, I think Rabbi Dr. Torsky might be a little Nogei B'Dovid because he is Chassidish, and so to his mind, was ist schlecht to give out the Gezach, and he doesn't see the problem. But I have seen girls who have gone out with Chassidish boys, and they felt that the cultural gap was too much. They didn't see themselves in that lifestyle. And like I said, a lot of it depends. There are people who are like neo-Hasidim. They're like, you see guys who like dress with the Levush. And I say, "Oh, what Hasidus are you?" They said, "No, I like the Levush, A chassid with a rebbe to be named later, So, okay. But, if you're going to go into one of those Hasidus where Friday night you have to wear a little apron and a little hat on top of the shaitel, and, you got to decide whether or not you're ready for that. It comes with a certain lifestyle and a certain commitment, and you got to be honest. I'm not so cavalier as to dismiss the concerns. I had a girl who was engaged to a Chassidish boy, and I said, "So you're going to become a chassid?" She's like, "Yeah." I said, "So that's it? No more gebrachs?" And she burst out in tears. Okay, so you might think, what's the big deal? Okay, some people, a matzah bride and a matzah ball, chicken soup. Hey, it's 1 week. What's the big deal? Yeah. So let's go to the opposite extreme. Yeah. You want to eat rice on Pesach? Marry a Sephardish boy. Now, today, intermarriage between Sephardim and Ashkenazim is a lot more common than it was years ago. But is it a different culture? It's for sure a different culture. For sure a different culture. People grow up differently. People grow up with different types of values. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. And I'm not saying it can't work. It's got to be honest. So some Sephardim, they don't let their wives wear sheitlach. They have to, cover their hair with, a hat or a kerchief or whatever it is. No sheitel. Some girls are okay with that. Some are not. There are considerations. I knew a Ashkenazi girl who got engaged to Sephardish boy. Now, again, this is an Eretz show. I don't know about how the situation works in America. But she says, she's going to have a hard time when it comes to getting her kids into school, because there is a discrimination in Ashkenazi schools against Sephardim. We talked about this in an earlier podcast, where it's coming from and everything. I'm not going to go into it, but it's a consideration. Yeah. So these are things to think about. Are these things really important to me or not? Then there's stuff that goes on with the family, right? What if the parents are divorced? What if a kid grew up in a divorced family? Now, years ago, this was more of a deal. Somebody told me about a particular Beis Yaakov in the New York area, where they said the majority of the first grade class were coming from divorced families. So it's a lot more common today than it was. Yeah. But there's a stigma associated with it. I knew a wonderful girl who had a very hard time finding a shidduch because her father had passed away. And that was considered a psul, that she was an orphan. Yeah. Now, there are those who take it further. They check into the family. They have a brother who's divorced. They have a brother who has Down syndrome. They have a brother who has some sort of, is on the spectrum, for autism. They have that. So we're passing up the whole family, us. And people do. So it's a problem in the family. So even though this particular girl or boy has no problems, the brother this, the sister that, that's finished. So is that a psul or not? Now, I'm not going to tell you that a kid who grows up in a divorced family is not living a different life than a person who has two parents. Having said that, I get emails from people who tell me that they grew up in homes where there was abuse going on with the children. The parents were married. That didn't stop the fact that there was abuse of all kinds. I don't want to get graphic, but all kinds of abuse that were going on that these kids grew up with. I've had several students over the years who have told me that from the outside, everyone thinks they're the perfect family, and the parents live in different rooms. They can't get along with each other, but they're staying together for the kids. But from the outside, you can never tell. So you got to take those things into account as well. There is a more fundamental issue that I think has to be considered when it comes to families. And that is the issue of marrying a Baal Teshuva or a ger. Now you understand what comes with that. That means that you have an issue bringing your kids over to your in-laws. And even though there are those that are very respectful, Usher Wade used to be a Baptist minister, and he became a ger, converted to Judaism. So somebody asked him once, says, how does do you still have a relationship with your parents? He says, yeah, we went there for a Shabbos. When I got there, my father said, don't worry, son, I used to be a Shabbos goy. And you never know where it pops up. I was with somebody once, very yeshivish fellow. I had no idea that he was a ger, And he says to me, old goy, my anti-Semitin. Take my mother, she's the worst. I did a double take. Yeah. Dovid Orlofsky, famous individual, speaking Jewish causes all around. So he says when he was in the process, so he was in Heritage House, not the Heritage House, he was in the Hillel House on a university in England. And he says to the president, Says, you're the president of the Hillel house, you should at least put on a yarmulke when you eat. He says, you're not wearing a yarmulke. He said, I'm a goy. What's your excuse? He told me that story. So, but it's a consideration. How you go with it, where you go with it, I'm not saying. There was a very poignant letter. It was written to the Jewish Observer by a Baal Teshuva couple. And they said, you have no idea what we go through. And he was listing all kinds of different problems that they go through. And they said, just take something as simple as finances. We don't have a Bobby and Zadie to buy the kids Shabbos coats. Bobby and Zadie will go and pick up something for the kids. We don't have that. So many things that you take for granted when you grow up this way. And also, obviously, depending when they became a Baal Teshuva, and where they were coming from. So if a family grew up Christian and he suddenly found out he was Jew when he was 22, until that point he had been doing missionary work in Africa, then he became from, so it takes a while. Some people pick it up better than others. And for this, I take a moment to praise Eshet Torah. Eshet Torah always used to call themselves Eshet Torah until they realized that was too hard for the Baal Teshuva to say Eshet Torah, because it comes out saying Eshet Torah. They just changed it to Eish. Or Sameach decided to name their yeshiva something that they knew that their students could not pronounce. Or Sameach. Or Sameach, And then they made a koilel after that called Meshach Chachma. That's just cruel. But to pick it up, you see sometimes, and they haven't got the pronunciation. Especially when it's their name, Yerakmiel, and stuff. Can be, you have to decide whether or not you're okay with that. Now, again, do I think that's an inherent psul? I don't think it's an inherent psul. Does it mean that there's a different set of issues that come along with it? Yes, it does. Yes, it does. So people can make a very long list. I only want somebody who comes from here. I only want somebody who does this. I only want this kind of family. I only want the, yeah. A girl told me she was meeting with a shadchan. And it was a very long time. Asked questions about this one, and this one, and this one. And with the girl really, had enough, is when she said, which concentration camp were your grandparents in? So she says, why, is Auschwitz more choshev than Bergen-Belsen? little dark humor over there, She's like, why in the world should that make any difference? But, it's amazing. There's so many gradations. This is like this, is like this, like this. Okay, now I'm the wrong one to talk to on this. I tend to err on the other extreme. That's why I have two daughters who are divorced, because I'm not very good at checking things out. Yeah. In fact, after my second daughter got divorced, someone said, well, there must be something wrong with your family. I said, there is. I brought them up with poor values. I told them everybody's nice, and they're not. Some people are terrible people. But we're always down the kafschus. We're always willing to give the benefit of the doubt, and that's a mistake. All right? Now, I know somebody does investigations and would put the Mossad to shame. And, but as you're weighing the considerations, there's always going to be a problem. Yeah. So I had a relative went out with a girl. First girl he went out with. Says, it's great. Fine. So his mother said, but did you notice there was this problem? He says, yeah. Did you notice there was that problem? He says, yeah. This problem, that problem, yeah. And finally he says, Mom, nobody's perfect. You're just going to trade one set of problems for another set of problems. Right? Nobody's perfect. You can wait for perfection. Yeah. Those people are called oldest singles. Keep waiting for the perfect person. There are no perfect people. My wife got the last one. I tell her that all the time. I don't know. One day I think I'll convince her. But anyway, the fact is, everybody has limitations, and that's why there's this concept in halacha, sava v'kibel. I understand there was a problem, and okay, I can live with it. I can live with it. So you got to be realistic. You can make everything a consideration, but you have to be honest with yourself. You can talk it over with people, with your advisors, with people who are there. But before you start the dating process, you have to get clear, what are my red lines? What would be nice to have? You know, talking to a yeshiva guy once, and I said, so what are you looking for? So I'm looking for a frum girl. A frum girl in Tsanua. Very Tsanua. And she's got to be geschickt. You know what I mean? She's got to know how to take care of her house. Be a balabasta. And I'm looking for somebody with very nice midos. I mean, a good person, a refined person, you know. And, she's got to have a job where she can make money to help support the family. That's important to me. And, that's about it. I said, that's it. He says, yeah, I mean, she has to be rich and look like a model, but other than that, I don't have any serious demands. Gewaldig. So you got to be honest. Be honest with yourself. Be true to yourself. That's the message. Sit down and be honest. Say, what can I be? So, and very often people are like, I never thought that I would marry a guy from Mexico. I never thought I would marry a guy who does this. I never thought I was going to marry this kind of a girl, that kind of a girl. We have pictures in our mind. And the question is, which of those things are essential? Yom Kadosh for the Am Kadosh. It doesn't matter if one is a day of the week and one is a people on the face of the earth. If they are united in a common goal of building Kedusha, that's all. The other stuff is narishkeit. All the other stuff is secondary, in my opinion. But that's me talking. You have to be honest. You have to be able to look at it from an honest point of view. And that's it for this episode. If you want to find out more about the show, you can go to my website, RobbyOrlofsky.com. You could leave a comment. You could send a letter. You could sponsor an episode. You can read articles, play the karaoke version of the Rabbi Orlofsky theme song, whatever you want to do. How about knock yourself out? And that's it until next time. I'm David Orlofsky, and this is the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.
It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Knowledge and wisdom will help you grow. Lots of fun in every episode, and we don't have to rhyme. No, we don't. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show on RabbiOrlofsky.com. Torah, anytime, YouTube and more. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Till next time, till we meet again. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.